Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Maureen O'Connor from Quilters Heaven in Northbrook, Illinois, and I am the Opinionated Quilter. There were a few videos I watched this past week that caught my attention, and they had to do with size of the block. I saw two videos with Di from Sister Chicks and April Story, and they did the same block, a pineapple blossom block, and Di did a smaller size, and April did a gigantic size. And we'll have links to those videos below, and you can make your own decision. For those of you who've watched the channel before or know me, you know I often change size of blocks to a block smaller than the original pattern was written. Now, I have lots and lots of examples, but I'm not going to bore you with all of them. I'm just going to give you two that are representative of what I do. This is Ribbon Candy from Gudrun Erla's book, Strip Your Stash. And this is the original pattern using 2.5-inch strips. And this is the baby size. So there's 8 blocks. I use 2.5-inch strips from my 2.5-inch strip bin. And then I needed background, setting triangles, and borders. So if you look at this, I only used a very little bit of scraps. And the bigger thing to me was the size of the blocks. They're huge, and this is 60 inches long. To me, the scale is off for a baby quilt. So I wanted to make my blocks smaller and use more scraps and stash. So I made it with 1.5-inch strips, and I used all scrap background, borders. I even used leftover pieces for the binding. And these blocks are much smaller. The quilt is smaller. I think the scale is better for a baby quilt. And I just like this one a whole lot better. I've shown you this before, Glazed Donuts from Julie Herman. And if you haven't seen that video, we'll put a link to that video below as well. And here's the original size. This is 18 by 21, and it's huge. The baby quilt uses just 6 blocks, and it's 51 inches tall. That to me is just way too big for a baby quilt. To me, the scale is off. I made the smaller version, 10 by 11, and I'm making 15 blocks of this to lay out to make a baby quilt. I'm working on it now. It's not finished, but I'll show it to you when it's done. I think the scale is much better for a baby quilt. The other video that caught my eye was from my friends in Missouri that made a version of the Storm at Sea quilt that was so big that they couldn't cut the diamonds from pre-cuts and had to break down and use yardage. The quilt has such big pieces, they called it a tsunami. Now behind me is a practice piece that I made for a Storm at Sea quilt. I made it, as I always tell you, to do a practice block because the original pattern uses templates, and we all know I'm not going to use templates. So I needed to make this. I'd never done the diamond wrecks of Deb Tucker's. I wanted to practice my pressing directions. Did I have my sizes right? So I made this tiny little piece. This piece is the same number of blocks as the tsunami. The difference is my 3 by 6 diamond wrecks is 8 by 16 in theirs. It's huge. And the problem with this piece is there's not enough repeats in it to be able to see the movement that the Storm at Sea is known for. If you look at the Storm at Sea quilt, and I've drawn black lines on it so that you can see the wave, the movement. Well, in mine, I don't have enough pieces to be able to get that continuous wave. There's just a very little short one. And that's the problem with the tsunami. It's so big and not enough repeats that you can't even see the wave. The other issue that they did in Missouri was instead of using high contrast. After they cut the diamonds from yardage, they used pre-cuts for the rest of the fabric. So in red, white, and blue, the colors kind of all got muddled. There wasn't enough contrast for you to be able to see that storm at sea movement. So if you want to make a tsunami quilt, there's absolutely nothing wrong with making it. It's a fine quilt. The issue is if you're looking for the movement of the storm at sea that it's known for, that one's not going to give it to you. So that's my opinion. Today's episode, coin collecting, crumb collecting, is next. This is coin collecting. It's originally from Quilter's Newsletter magazine, and I can't tell you which year and month it's from because I don't remember. It was also published in a best of book from Quilt Maker, and I don't have that anymore either. It's not at my distributor. I don't know if you can find it on Amazon or not, but the original pattern is this one. It's a 15-inch block where it alternates vertical and horizontal across. And it has a top strip that's the same as the bottom strip and a wider middle strip with 1.5-inch strips in between. And I started using it to use up my 1.5-inch strip pile. And I will not give you the measurements on this one because it's not my pattern. You'll have to go to Quilter's Newsletter magazine to get it. But I have changed it. I've made a 12-inch block. And I also have made a 9-inch block, and I don't have one finished to show you, but I've got blocks to show you on the table. But again, it's alternating horizontal and vertical across. It's a 12-inch block, and I don't know which one you like better. Again, I like the smaller better. It has a top and bottom that are equal and a wider middle, and I left these all still 1.5 inches. And it's a great use of not full width of fabric, 1.5-inch pieces. And on this one, I also use scrap stash for background. And I like doing that because then I'm not taking anything from the store. So let's get to the measurements. The 12-inch block, the top and bottom are cut 2 to finish to 1.5. The coins, meaning this section, is cut 4 inches to finish to 3.5, and the middle is cut 2.5 to finish to 2, which gives you a 12-inch block. The 9-inch block, which is this one, still uses 1.5-inch pieces. The top and bottom are cut 1.5 to finish to 1. The coins are cut 3 to finish to 2.5, and the middle is cut 2.5 to finish to 2. So for all you crumb quilters out there, we made a crumb quilt version. And I made this top section, and let me tell you, I found it excruciating. We used only things that were in the dog bed stuffing bag, things that I wouldn't have saved to make 1.5-inch squares or 1.5-inch strips or larger. And to sew these together and then lop it off and have another scrap, luckily I just put it back in the dog bed bag. But for you people who crumb quilt, you put that back in your crumb bag. To me, as I said when I was cutting before, once I cut them up, the rest goes into the dog bed bag, and we're done with it, and you're never going to see it again. I found this so excruciating to make that my employee made this one. Took her all day, and let me tell you, she wasn't happy with me. I don't know if I didn't give her enough instructions. I said just sew everything together to get a piece that's at least 9.5 by 3. And in the time it took her to make this, I had made a whole strip set of the 1.5-inch pieces. So this is the crumb version. I don't know which one you like better. I would love to have you comment on which one you like better. In my coin version, I'm going to use scrap backgrounds. I've already pulled a whole stack, so I'm not necessarily going to use all of these. Some of these may have too much pattern in them, but this is what I'm going to use for my backgrounds for my coins. Now, how did I make all of these? I tried to use 1.5 inch strips not full width of fabric because there's too many patterns that I can use the full width of fabric for. And this is one that adapts to not full width of fabric. I found that my box was getting rather depleted, and I realized that I hadn't been working on my regular cutting enough. So to keep your boxes of scraps full, you need to keep cutting up your scraps as you go, and I've been a little lax on that. So I did have to use some full width of fabric strips, but I just took 9 strips, and they are not all the same length. I don't know how well you can see this. They're not all the same length, and I then cut them into my 3-inch pieces, and I've got one more here I can cut without running out of one. So I would go ahead and cut this one. And now I'm not going to get another width out of this. So I just take my seam ripper and I'm going to rip this off. And if it's big enough to be 1.5 inch, it goes back into the 1.5 inch pile. And now I need to put something else on. So I had found this strip. Well, I don't think I want to put it on here because there's a green one on the other side of this floral. So I would sew this onto this side and then cut as many as I can get till these blues shut me down. And then I'll just take what I have left from here, add more to it so that I can just keep cutting 1.5 inch the strips, which is, this is 9 wide and 3 inches for my 9-inch block. So great use of scraps, which I would call these crumbs because they're pretty little. But if you want to really make a crumb version, go for it. Use all those tiny little scraps. Not my thing. Not going to vote for it. Don't like it. But if you do, that's all good because everybody should make what they enjoy, not what I enjoy. So that's our episode today. Keep quilting. Have a great week. See you next time. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. Leave any comments below. I will try to respond to you. You can also reach me on Instagram at Quilters Heaven Inc. See you next Monday.